Welcome to Pastoral Ministry 1. I'm so glad that you're here with us this week. Today we're going to talk about pitfalls to avoid. As a pastor, there's some pitfalls that you've got to be mindful of. And how do you go about dealing with these pitfalls? Our age is an age of ethical uncertainty. Ministerial ethics can no longer be assumed, if ever they were. Moral failures in the ministry are all too common today. There are 3 moral issues that are ranked top on the list of ministerial dismissals: abuse of authority, sexual misconduct, and misuse of or embezzlement of church funds. We're going to take each of these and talk about it a little. Let's talk about the abuse of spiritual gifts and authority. Now, any spiritual gift can be used or abused. Any spiritual gift can be a blessing or it can be a curse. There are those whom God has endowed with extra measure of charisma, God-given touch that attracts people to you. That's charisma. But the bad news is that it might be used for secular, even evil purposes. Yes. So the giftings that you've received from God, the anointing that God has blessed you, can actually be a blessing or it can be a curse. We have examples of people or persons in the Bible that misuse their God-given gifts and ability and authority. Of course, Ezekiel 28 verse 11 to 19 tells us of Lucifer, the guardian angel. He was created beautiful, but because of his arrogance, because he arrogated authority and misused the authority God has given him, the Bible tells us that he was cast out from his place of dwelling. He was dismissed from his ministry. In Numbers 22 in Numbers chapter 22 and 24, we read of the story of Balaam. Balaam was a prophet of God, but he used his giftings of prophecy for the wrong reason. The Bible talks about his greed and his desire for wealth and his avaricious passion and desire that led him astray. The Bible talks about this in Numbers 22 and 24. And you read of how he perished because he aligned himself with the enemies of God's people. And he perished because of his greed and avarice. The Bible tells us in Judges chapter 13 and 16, the life of Samson. Samson was a guy with charisma and strength and power with extraordinary anointing. And God used him mightily to deliver Israel from the hands of the Philistines. But the Bible tells us that Samson, because of his lust and because of his insatiable desire for women and sexual impurity, ended up jeopardizing his ministry. So these are examples of people that we see in scriptures that were called of God, but they fell into some pitfalls of authority, of abuse of authority, or spiritual gifts. Holiness and humility are the 2 virtues that will keep the anointing upon a minister. You're called into holiness and you're called to walk in humility. If you want to avoid the abuse of spiritual gifts and authority, then holiness and humility is the pathway to go. Now let's talk about sexual impurity. The most common reason for ministerial fallout is sexual impurity. There's so many pastors that have quit ministry. There's so many churches that have dismissed their pastors because of sexual misconduct. And now in our readings, Bisagno gives us 10 suggestions for avoiding the pitfall of sexual immorality. The first, he says, keep your love affair with Jesus passionate. Be someone that is still in love with Jesus. Never let go of your first love. Make sure you're connected with Jesus. The second suggestion he says is give a new commitment to early morning prayer. Someone said prayer will keep you from sin or sin will keep you from prayer. So it's important that you think about your prayer life. The third suggestion he says, never be alone with another woman other than your wife. Never be alone with another woman. If you must be with a woman, make sure there's someone there with you, or make sure your wife is there with you. The fourth suggestion is be accountable. You cannot live the Christian life alone. You cannot be a lone ranger. Get your peers. Get people around you. Surround yourself with people that will speak truth into your life. Be accountable to somebody. The fifth suggestion, he says, learn to talk to your wife. It's so important that you and your wife connect on a daily basis. Connect with her emotionally, spiritually. Talk with your wife. The sixth suggestion is learn to turn your head. In other words, when you see danger, learn to flee. Joseph did that. The seventh suggestion is prioritize family time. Invest in your family. Spend time with your family. That will help you from falling into the trap of sexual impurity. The sixth is attend a marriage retreat once a year with your wife. Spend time attending retreats or seminars with about at least one seminar a year. That's not too hard to find nowadays. We have so many marriage seminars around us. Get one and attend with your wife. The ninth suggestion, he says, keep a picture of you and your wife on your wedding day alone with a picture of your kids on your desk. Yes, have a picture of your wife and your kids around in your office. That will remind you of the covenant you took on the day you were married. That will remind you of how you have some precious kids and you have a precious family that is looking up to you, and therefore you cannot mess up. That's important. The tenth suggestion, he says, go to bed at the same time. It's important for you and your wife to go to bed at the same time. You connect with each other. You pray with each other. You share the warmth and fellowship together. So these are 10 suggestions that are so important for us to have in helping us to avoid sexual impurity. Now let's talk about finances. Beware of the church's money. Here are some things you should not do. The wise minister will keep himself above possible reproach and never handle the church's money. Try as much as possible not to handle the church's money. Don't. Cash should never be handled except in the presence of 3 or more persons. Don't handle church money. Again, that's the emphasis. Don't have secret accounts. Don't set your own salary. Let the church determine your salary. Have an entertainment budget set by the finance committee and use it with integrity. Of course, you're going to have visitors. You're going to have guests that will come to visit you. And you don't have to use your personal money. You can ask the finance committee of the church to provide some funds available for that. And many churches would be glad to do that. All checks should be co-signed, but the pastor should not be a co-signer. Don't offer yourself to sign any check for the church. Let the treasurer, let the deacons in the church, let them handle that. You cannot afford to be charged with embezzlement of the church funds. That's not your calling, and that can tarnish your ministry. So watch out for that. Now let's talk about some things you should do to help safeguard you in this aspect of dealing with finances. At least once a year, the pastor should teach his people about biblical stewardship. It's your responsibility as a pastor to teach your church, to teach your members about the need for stewardship. A lot of pastors complain today that their members don't give financially. Well, have you taught them how to give? You got to teach them how to give. The pastor's attitude towards money will be reflected in his church's attitude towards money. He needs to practice a biblical balance about money. You've got to take the lead, pastor. You've got to be the one leading in this aspect. You want people to give, you've got to lead by example. God's plan for managing money begins with tithe. Tithing, giving 10% is older than the Bible. We read that even before the first book, Genesis, was written by Moses. We read about it, that Abraham gave a 10% to Melchizedek. The Bible tells us about that. So this is so important. Tithing is not something new. It has been there since the beginning of time. And so you've got to remember that it's important that you teach your people about tithing. The 10% is a fixed and fair amount for every child of God. Tithing is not based on financial ability. It is based on duty and obedience. Again, 10% is just the starting point. If those in the old covenant were asked to start with 10%, how much more of us in the new covenant of grace that have received abundance of grace and mercy? I believe that 10% is just for starters. But as you grow in and mature in the things of God, I think and I believe Paul says in Corinthians that you need to also grow in giving. So 10% is just a starting point. And you, as the pastor, you've got to model that. So watch out for these pitfalls in the ministry. Watch out, beware of sexual immorality, beware of finances, embezzlement of the church funds, and beware of the abuse of authority. And I pray that the Lord grant us grace as we go through life. God bless you.